Hello, everyone. Welcome to our bonus episode with our co-founder, Maya.
Hey, everybody.
Maya, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, so once again, my name is Maya Miller. I am a software engineer. I currently work at Uber on Uber Eats, but I feel like I worked at like a lot of tech companies since my little career, including Google, YouTube, and Twitter. Yeah, Twitter was like the right before I got to Uber.
Okay, and how are you liking software engineering?
I actually love it, honestly, because I really enjoy like being able to like build stuff, and I feel like coding is one of like the most like I guess not easy to pick up, but like accessible. Yeah, all you need is a laptop, and then you can literally create like your favorite app.
Exactly, I love that about it too. So on Bytes and Insights, the question we ask all of our guests is, "What is your favorite bite?"
Honestly, Cheez-Its, but like specifically the extra toasty. Extra toasty where it has a little bit of burnt on the edge is my go-to.
Okay, well, I have a surprise for you.
Oh.
Today we have Jesus.
No free promo. Period. This is actually lit. Okay, you gotta dig in there. I hope your hands are clean.
Yeah.
Are you gonna eat with me?
Like, yeah, hold on.
Like a little Cheez-Its cheer?
Cheez-Its cheer, yeah. All right, so today you wanted to talk to us about imposter syndrome, but before we get to that, I think we should take it back to where it all began. So tell us a little bit about, when you were in high school and decided you wanted to study computer science or go into software engineering. Like, where did that start for you?
It's actually a really crazy story because I was like, it's probably like 2015, and I was coming back from like a summer Euro trip with like some of my best friends. And like we were in the airport coming back from Rome and in Chicago. And literally, I remember being at the airport and like seeing this guy like coding on his laptop. Whoa. And like he was just like locked in. And then like, I don't know, I usually don't talk to people in the airport, but I was like, oh, like, are you like an engineer? Like, are you a software engineer and stuff? And he's like, yeah, I work at Twitter. Da, 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 da.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was crazy. So like, and I also like moved around a lot like growing up, and like my mom, she's been working in tech and stuff like that, so I feel like I did have exposure like of that world. And like for high school, I like grew up in the Bay Area, so of course like the access to like Silicon Valley is like right there, so I always knew what coding was. I just never thought it would be something that like I would be interested into, because like I love fashion, I love beauty. Like I thought like I was gonna be like a fashion PR girly, living in New York, living her best life.
You've done both though.
And that's the crazy thing. Yes. So like when I saw him coding at the airport, like I knew what it was just because of like that access to like Silicon Valley. But he told me like, oh, there's actually this program that Twitter is in collaboration with and like a bunch of other tech companies called Girls Who Code. So like that for some reason just stuck in my brain because that was in the summer. And then I remember in January of 2015 probably, I like just looked up the program and like applied and I got in, and then I did Girls Who Code my like junior to senior year. And like literally before that, I literally thought I was gonna go into communications, like being like a marketing girly or something. But like I applied to all the schools as a computer science major because I just loved it so much doing Girls Who Code.
I love that. Okay, that's really cool. How was the program really big? Like were there a lot of other people in it?
Yeah, like so our classroom probably had like 25 people, but like at that summer they probably were in like 20 companies in like the Silicon, like San Francisco area. But they also had some cohorts and companies in New York too.
Okay.
Yeah, so I feel like that program like really changed my life, honestly, because like
cool.
We did like the first like, every week we did like different projects and stuff. But like the first one that I was just like, this coding stuff is fire. Was like we did the like a Spotify dupe. So like we made like an app where you can like play your favorite songs.
Yeah.
And like mind you, we were using like Snap. So we weren't even like using like it was like a block coding language. Like we weren't even writing real code.
Yeah.
But the fact that like in a week we were able to build like an app that I use every single day, like you know those moments when like your brain chemistry just be changing?
Yeah.
Like that was like a brain chemistry changing moment for me.
That's so cool. So then in college, so you said you applied to colleges and you applied with the intention of studying computer science. Yeah. And you stuck with computer science the whole time?
Yes, like despite all the odds, like my mom will like tell you that like there were so many moments when like, because like in that Girls Who Code classroom, it was all women. Like our instructors were women, all of the girls learning to code. So like we had like a very like, I don't know, incubated experience that like I don't know like necessarily prepared me for like how bad the lack of diversity in engineering is.
Yeah.
So like me going to like, and I went to like a really good school for computer science. Like we had like a lot of like strong people and a lot of industry connections too. So like that's the reason why I chose that school. But like UC San Diego has 2% Black people.
Yeah.
And like in the engineering department, it literally is like something that I feel like is just, there's barely any women, there's barely any people of color. So like I don't think I was fully prepared for like how hard that would like impact me like as a student. So like I feel like my first year was really tough. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I really struggled with like finding like community on campus. As well as like inside of the engineering department. And like I did know some people going into the program, but it was just very challenging like finding that community and like finding that sense of belonging, because like people like who study computer science like literally have done it since they were like 12.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was like the biggest gripe for me. It was like I felt like I was always behind everyone.
Yes, literally. And like, so I don't know, like I feel like I was always trying to keep up with everybody and not going at my own pace for my own journey. And like that like led to like a lot of like hard lessons to learn.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so how did you get into industry from college?
Yeah, so that's another really funny, crazy story. So essentially, like I said, there's like barely any Black women in computer science. So there was one other Black girl in computer science at my school, and her name was also Maya.
Okay.
So we met, and it was like one of those like, it was one of those crazy moments where I was just like, yeah, are you me? Like the 2-year-old version of me. Here? So like I said, like our school had like a lot of like people coming to like recruit talent. So like we had a career fair, and I remember this like, I mean, Facebook at the time, but Meta Now recruiter was like, oh, are you ready for your interview? And I was like, interview? I was like, what is he talking about? He literally confused me for the other Maya, okay?
Do y'all even look alike?
No. No. Shout out to Maya Lovesco, period girl.
I'll give you the name thing.
But yeah, so that ended up being a funny story, because that kind of was like the first time like a recruiter like was talking to me and like taking interest in me. Like, so it ended up being like a fluke. But like once we had that conversation, I literally was like, let me see if I can like talk to some other recruiters at this career fair or whatever. So then like I met with this Google recruiter there, and like we connected, and then months passed by, and essentially I ended up getting a Google like interview. Aced the interview. I'm hype. But like I said, like my first semester was tough in school. Like I feel like I did do good with my grades, but like there was just it was this math class, y'all, this calculus class that it was rough, okay? Yeah. So the GPA wasn't as pristine as you can imagine you would need for a Google freshman year internship. Because they only have like a couple spots. Like it's not like a big program. But I always say that this woman named Bernita is like, shout out to Bernita, one of my angels. Because like I did so good in my technical interview, and like she really fought hard for me to like still let me get an offer and a chance to like come that summer as an intern.
I love that.
So yeah, that's how I got my freshman year internship at Google, was like through like obviously like studying a lot for like the interview, but also having somebody who would like actually advocate for me. And like that was kind of like my first like experience, like at least like in my career, where like I had somebody within my community, within my network, who like really believed in me and like was like, no, like let me fight for her in rooms that she's not in.
I love that. Okay, so you're here today to talk to us about imposter syndrome. So, you know, you talked about your time in high school and in college and then interviewing to get into industry. So when would you say is the first time you really felt like you were experiencing imposter syndrome?
I feel like the first time that like I really like registered and was aware that it was imposter syndrome probably was like my like class right before I like started my internship, because like I knew I was going into the summer with like a Google internship, and at that point like I kind of feel like the community that I had built at college like high key turned against me a little bit.
Oh really?
Like I feel like they were super supportive like that freshman like first semester, but like I think like once I got my Google internship, like I do feel like they definitely like kind of like ousted me and like didn't want to like, you know, do coding assignments with me as much as once I got the offer. So like I feel like I felt like I really had like lost like my like initial like core community. So like I feel like I had to just like start from zero. And that's right after me unfortunately having to retake a class. So I got into like a really wild bike accident. Yeah, like 2 days before final season.
Oh my gosh.
So I got into a bike accident coming down a hill, headed to office hours for my like data structures class.
Dang.
So literally, I don't know, like, you know when you're just so in the zone, and like I feel like I was just so like always just full of anxiety and like super stressed out in college.
Yeah.
So it never even occurred to me to even like communicate to like my professor, like, hey, you know, I just got into like, I literally had a concussion. Like I literally had a concussion, but it never occurred to me to even like try to advocate for myself, as
like,
in like
push it back or something.
Yes, exactly. Just to ask to push it back. So I took the test 2 days after I had a concussion. And and it's so crazy because I had enough to pass the class, but in order for that course to pass the class, you had to get over 65% on the final. And I got under 65% for the final. I got like a 64.
Oh my god.
It was so close.
Yeah.
It was so close. And then, you know, it's just one of those moments where I feel like God really stepped in. Because I remember we were talking earlier about like just trying to keep up with everybody else.
Yeah.
I feel like I was trying to keep up with everybody else so much that like I kind of was rushing my journey in school, and like to the point where I was rushing that I wasn't really absorbing all of the concepts. Like even if I had the concussion, I still felt like with my own self-awareness that like, hey, I probably should slow down a little bit and like make sure I'm like fully grasping, like, because data structure is such a fundamental like part of computer science and like software engineering. Like it's really one of those foundational parts. So it's like, you know, I do believe that it worked out in the best, but of course in the moment, like this is me, you know, what, 6-7 years later?
Yeah.
With that like, you know, oversight. But in the moment, I really felt like the most probably depressed I ever was in college because of the fact that like all my peers I started out with were like essentially surpassing me. I was staying behind and having to repeat a class. So I felt like on top of like me getting like the Google internship, like people knew about that. So like it's like a combination of like embarrassment, a bunch of self-doubt, like, am I really meant to do this? Like, is this even like something that's really meant for me?
Yeah.
And like even throughout my whole computer science education, I never really like fully enjoyed it, but I still loved coding. And like that internship really like changed my like trajectory, because I felt like coming in I had so much self-doubt, not feeling like this was a space that like I could really excel in, because like I did really good. Like I was salutatorian in high school, so like I'm used to like doing things well and at a high level, but like me in college, I was really struggling with my academics, you know?
Yeah.
And I felt like I didn't have any real community around me to like uplift me. And like I said, like I had Bernita, but like, you know, she worked at Google. Like she's not with me like on campus, like day to day. So like I feel like going to my internship and like being able to meet a bunch of engineers who were freshmen and Black and brown people was like transformative. Like I met so many people that some of that I keep in contact with today, and I feel like that experience like gave me the confidence that I didn't have like in undergrad on my college campus. But being in industry and with all these other people, like meeting people from all over the country, all over the world, and like all of us having like similar backgrounds as far as like, you know, maybe not feeling like we belong in tech, because like literally no one like look like us.
Yeah.
Like this is like 2015, 2016, 2017. So like there really wasn't many like young Black people in these spaces.
Yeah.
So like us being able to come together and like share shared experiences about like overcoming challenges and like just not feeling like we belong on our college campuses was very transformative.
Okay, yeah. So it sounds like it really started really just because of that concussion and like having that experience with your class.
As crazy as that is, literally.
And that was like the start of the imposter syndrome. Would you say, well, so you talked about like how being in industry and meeting people from outside of your school helped to cure that a little bit. Do you think there are other times like after you graduated college, when you got into industry, that you had imposter syndrome? Like what would you say was the hardest, like the biggest hurdle you overcame, like imposter syndrome related?
Yeah, because I feel like imposter syndrome is one of those things that like it really never goes away. Because, you know, like once you kind of had that trauma that like I don't deserve to be in this space, like I'm not worthy, like it doesn't matter how many accomplishments, how fat and stacked that resume is. Like I think like, because we're always trying to like move and achieve bigger and better things, and that like comes at the cost of like doing things that you've never done before, being in spaces that you've never been before. So like even though I like started like my last internship was with Twitter, and that was one of the best internships I ever had because like this the culture and like I really feel like they had like a really inclusive like network of people, and like we had like the Black engineers at Twitter group, which was like phenomenal because we were able to like meet people who were like staff engineers who like been like in this field as a Black person for like over a decade. So I was like going in feeling really confident about like being a full-time employee at Twitter. Had an amazing time at Twitter, and everybody knows what happened to Twitter. Everybody knows what happened. So like I probably was at Twitter for maybe 2.5 years as a full-time employee before like it went private and was purchased by Elon. And then like
we all watched that saga.
Exactly.
That was so crazy.
It was so crazy.
It was like the beginning of a turn in the tech industry. Because after that it was just like layoff after layoff. I was like, oh my God.
Yes, it was like
nobody's safe.
No one's safe. Versus like, because I feel like engineering as a whole and working in tech was always like marketed as like a very safe, career path.
Right before that.
Yeah.
Everybody was talking about tech.
Everybody. Like, you want to break into tech. Like, all those things was going so big, especially, like, post-pandemic. So, I mean, I was sipping that Kool-Aid, too. I'm thinking, like, yes, like, I love my job. I love working here, da-da-da. And, like, I had just switched to a new team that I was really excited about machine learning. And then, like, and I don't think people on the outside fully understand what it was like literally coming into work and not knowing if your badge was going to scan.
That's scary.
Suddenly. Like, when I tell you, like, executives, directors, everybody was freaking out. No one knew what was gonna happen. And like, mind you, I'm experiencing this as like 23. Like very young experiencing this and like not necessarily prepared. So yeah, of course, like a part of like the 70% of the people who were laid off, I was laid off at like 23 years old. And like that was something I never really thought I would experience. Like, of course, like working in employment, like or like working in corporate, like you're always essentially like exposed to that. But like you don't, like I said, you're that security blanket. You're not thinking it's gonna happen to you. So when you suddenly like, lose your like main source of income, especially with like so much like media coverage, like you said, like it was breaking news.
It was like, because I knew a few other people who were working there, and everybody was just seeing like crazy stuff online. Like, I remember one of my friends was like, "Can someone connect me with a lawyer?" Like, everybody lawyered up. Binding. What's going on?
Everybody lawyered up. So I feel like I had a bunch of imposter syndrome because at that point, like I hadn't done like a technical interview in like 4 years. And like, if you're not aware like of how intense the technical interview process for software engineer jobs, just know software engineers are worth every freaking penny because the amount of studying and preparation you have to do for these like live coding interviews, it's very intense.
And it's so different from what you do on the job. So like, just because you've been working for 4 years doesn't mean you're ready to jump into an interview. You have to take time to study
the interview like style.
Go back,
So I felt like that is when I got hit with like my like first like wave of like imposter syndrome because like I feel like a lot of people I knew were like taking sabbaticals and like figuring out like, okay, like maybe like software engineering, maybe this is like something that I should like put on pause or like explore something else, because I had a lot of people who were doing that during this like gap period. But like I think like I'm the type of person like I really value security. So like because like I'm doing all these interviews, getting rejected over and over, like it took me like I will say like 3 to 4 months before I got my first offer. But like everybody around me would tell you like I was deep in the trenches. Like I was like studying like it was my full-time job, but like still dealing with a bunch of self-doubt because it's like obviously getting laid off does not feel good.
No, I can imagine that must be scary. And I feel like it's probably like a generational thing. Like as like feeling like you have to have that security blanket, Like not everyone was raised with a lot of like,
financial stability, like being able to like, support yourself essentially.
Exactly,
Because like I was living alone in New York City. I had just signed a new lease for like an upgraded apartment. So like things that I'm like thinking about for the first time of like, being like financially insecure was like really tough on top of like the intensity. Cause it's like, okay, everybody knew that I got like laid off as well. So it's like, just like thinking about like my reputation, like things that like are super superficial, like looking back, but like these are things that I generally was like just being vulnerable about, like just being like really stressed about. And I feel like the self-doubt really came from like just a series of rejections,
Yeah. And I can imagine early in your career too, like I remember the first few years of my career, I just always felt like I have to prove myself. Like I know that I got this job, but I have to make sure I can get promoted. Like I can't just be here.
Yeah, exactly.
I have to prove that I'm deserve to be here. Yeah.
Exactly. And I felt like, even though like the layoff was obviously like a financial one, like it wasn't like a performance-based like scenario, but it's still like, okay, like why haven't I gotten an offer? It's been like 2 months of me intensely interviewing. Like, why haven't I gotten an offer? Like, am I like not like good enough? Like, is this not for me? Like all of those like self-doubts, like thoughts really started to like bubble up. And I had to take like 2 weeks off of interviewing, you know? Because like I had really, really wanted this offer for this one company. And like, that's the thing, like, because no one was hiring at that time.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, it wasn't like a regular season.
Laying off.
Yeah, so like no one was hiring, and then like the bar was super high. Like, so like even if you made one mistake in your coding interview, like they were probably gonna go with somebody else.
Wow.
So like that's how intense it was. So just like I just feel like all the odds were stacked against me, and like my saving grace truly was the fact that like 80% of Twitter people got laid off. So like we were like tapped in with one another. Like I basically feel like we had a support group.
Yeah.
It basically was a support group of all the people who had been like impacted.
Yeah.
And like we would study interviews together. And like that was like a real true reminder of like the importance of community. I mean, like that's an anomaly case, you know, when like there's a mass layoff and such. But I do feel like that just reminded me of how important like having people around you who like are able to like step in and like offer like tangible support, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like the community you built or that you happen to have because of Twitter was really, really useful for you. So like what kind of resources did you all share? Like how did that come about? Like just having that community?
Yeah, so like when all the layoffs started happening, it literally happened like from Europe to the West Coast. So people were finding out.
Wow. So this is worldwide.
It was worldwide. It was global.
Worldwide.
We literally had a group chat, so we all knew who was impacted and who wasn't impacted.
Yeah.
But like a lot of people were obviously impacted. So like we immediately made like a group chat. Afrotech, shout out to Afrotech and Blavity, was like 2 weeks later. So a lot of us went to Afrotech that year, and obviously so cool. Like it was good timing, but like I said, the industry was just so bad with the layoffs.
Everybody's
like
probably they're trying to get a job.
Everybody was trying to get a job, but people were getting laid off at the conference.
That's crazy.
That's what I'm saying. Like 2022 in the fall was just unreal. But I feel like I was able to like get connected with my current employer at Afrotech.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like I was able to meet like a DEI sourcer there, which like ended up a couple months later being the person who like guided me through my whole interview process. So shout out to Cameron. Like I said, like there's a lot of people in the like industry like who really, really care about diverse talent. And like I want to give them their flowers because I feel like recruiters get a lot of slack.
Yeah.
But like when I was like back against the wall, I feel like I definitely had so many people who I can lean on to, and that I'm grateful for, like being in the industry for so long. Like I had a lot of people I could like tap into for like referrals, for even like just like interview prep. So I do want to like also like give a kudos to like Black Brilliant Minds, because like they have an amazing program that allows Black people to get free technical interview prep. So I was
good to keep in mind.
literally that's what I'm saying. Like I always tell people about it because I was like doing like 2 of those a week, and then with my like group chat we were doing another 2 interviews. Like Maya from college, she was doing interview prep with me. Like Anna was doing interview prep for me when I was interviewing for Square. So like those are just like examples I feel like about how even when you feel like slightly embarrassed about like something that's happening in your life, like being vulnerable and open and honest to people, you will be so surprised about who will come and help you and support you in those like hard times.
Wow.
Yeah, because I really felt like I had a big community, and even my non-technical friends that aren't in industry, like I had so many of my friends that were like checking in on me and stuff like that during the time where I really was just like, am I meant to be an engineer? Like, is this really what I need to be doing?
Yeah.
So I feel like those are things that really helped me pull me out of the imposter syndrome, like, and all the self-doubt and negative thinking. Cause like, I don't think I've dealt with that level of rejection ever in my life, but like all those things is what kept me going for real.
Wow. That sounds like so hard. That's so cool that like, so great that you overcame that. And the community, I know the community, that's so, like so inspiring. Wow. Because I haven't been in the interview trenches in a long time. And like, I'm afraid to go back to them because I do not want to go back to the, like getting rejected all the time. Yeah.
Getting rejected. The preparation is one part, but like, yeah, I think it's that like exposure to like, somebody say like, oh no, like you're not, like essentially you're not good enough to be hired or work here. Like that's basically what you're being told. But like, obviously through therapy, like that's not the case. Like don't think as intensely, like it's not like a personal decision against you, but I think at one point I was taking it so personal.
Oh no, I mean it's like natural. Like at some point you have to, because you have to like talk yourself out of not taking it personally. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so thanks for sharing this about your community and your struggle with like imposter syndrome in your interviewing. And I know that we talked a long while ago about like starting SiSTEM. So how would you feel like when we had that discussion? What experiences would you say like that are related to imposter syndrome and community that led to you wanting to start SiSTEM?
Yeah, it's so funny because I feel like a lot of people like don't know like how it came to be. So I feel like me and Chloe were on a retreat. Yeah. I've been calling it a retreat because that's what it felt like. It was a girls' trip. With some of our sorors, and I remember I was telling her about this idea for like starting a collective for Black and brown women in engineering, and like Chloe immediately was like, I love this idea, like if you need help, like hit me up, like I would love to be a part of it. Before that trip though, I feel like I had come through like a very challenging like career experiences of like overcoming all like finding the job, got the job, and very, very intense, like kind of toxic work environment. So I was just feeling very alone once again in my career. And I remember just talking to some people in my community, as one does. And I feel like everybody was telling me similar stories about issues that they were having at work, like was just not feeling like included, or like just really being tired of like the lack of like representation at work, like being I'm the only Black person on my team, and I feel like a lot of people I talk to are the only Black person and maybe the only woman on the team. So like being like, you know, that intersectionality of both is very challenging, honestly. And like I think like we talk to ourselves and like make it seem like it's not as challenging as it is, but like if you're the only person that looks like you in every meeting you're in, it is tough. It is psychologically tough, honestly. And I feel like people who don't necessarily experience that don't understand how challenging it could be. So I do want to give listeners, if you like, you know, have dealing with that, like just know we're all dealing with that. And I feel like that's kind of what led me to like, man, I like want to get us all together, like even if it's just like a dinner, like all the Black and brown girls who are engineering, like let's get dinner. If you're in New York City, pull up. And like that's kind of was like the initial idea, just like coming together, like chatting. And like that first dinner that we had, no one wanted to leave.
I know. And I was like thinking, oh, we need to have some like programming, we need to have something technical to talk about, but everyone was so engaged. That's like always my worry. And everyone, I feel like naturally everyone just has such engaging conversations with people. Like they're able to connect so easily. So, and
that's what I feel like is one of like the beautiful things, because like I feel like that's kind of like I feel like what we both like just dreamed and like hoped for. We're just like seeing everybody come together and like be able to just, and I feel like the work community is just so overloaded, but it essentially just means like having like bonds and like real connections with people who are going through similar things with you, and how can we support and like actually like uplift each other in tangible ways. And like I feel like at our last charm event, plug to the charm event, was amazing, because I mean people were talking about like being discriminated in the workforce and like what that feels like in the exact experience that they were having, and being met with like supportive, like encouraging words, like, girl, like it's okay, like, you know, I've experienced something similar, here is how I was able to overcome it. Like these things cannot be overlooked because of how important it is for people to be able to stay in this career, you know what I mean? It's like if you don't have people that you can go to talk about like experiences that are like tough, like being discriminated in the workforce is like,
it's very tough,
it's illegal, you know what I mean? Like these are like very serious things, and it's like I feel like a lot of people don't feel necessarily empowered, you know, or know the steps to take in order to like overcome these really challenging things. So like one of the things that happened at the charm event was that like this girl was like, no, this is an organization that like, you can reach out to for like HR discrimination like files. So I'm like
watching this at work.
Literally. So I'm like hearing this at our charm event, and I'm like, this is exactly why we wanted to start the collective and like have these community building activities and events, so that people who can like give resources, share, uplift. Because I mean that really is in its truest, rawest form of like empowering people and uplifting people.
I remember like hearing two people talk about like, I think one of them was having trouble with her manager, and one I remember having like a really intense conversation over text with her manager, and then someone else was talking about how they legit met someone who did not believe them when they said they were an engineer. And I was like, that's crazy. That's like caricature crazy. Like
no, but that's I mean like that has that not happened to you?
No, it's like I think she like met someone outside of work, and she was like, yeah, I'm a software engineer.
Like, no,
you're not. Company, and they were like, no, I don't believe you.
I'm like, so now I'm a liar.
Right. Right.
But I feel like I've experienced that too. Like people literally don't believe that I'm a software engineer either.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Pretty much. Yeah. I think that has just been pretty rewarding, like seeing people be able to naturally like come to these conversations and really gain and like benefit from being at our events and the connections that they meet. I feel like they're actually gaining from like the conversations they're having with people. So yeah. What would you say is the thing that you like to see the most? Like,
I feel like, yeah, so far it really has just been seeing everybody like come, have fun, not ever want to leave the events.
Yeah.
Like I feel like every event we have, there's always people lingering like an hour, 2 hours. And I feel like that's always just like, because there's so much stuff that goes behind the scenes to planning this stuff. And I feel like it always just makes it worth it.
Yeah.
Of like executing and all like the juggling. Because I'm saying like both of us have very intense jobs, but like, every time we see like people who are just, they don't ever want to leave the event, like it just is more affirming that like this community, this collective, like the things that we're working on and building towards are really impacting like people's actual lives in like real tangible ways.
Yeah.
Because I feel like community is so overly like used, but I feel like what we're trying to do is to actually like impact, like even if it's only like 20 people's lives.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So for people who are not able to come or have not had the chance to come yet to any of our events, what advice would you have to give them about building a community to help combat their imposter syndrome?
I think like I always say that like if you see a Black girl in the like office or any space, like I always say like, yeah, go up to them and just talk to them. Or a Black guy or a Hispanic girl. Like if you see any person that like maybe you've been able to like really create like a relationship with, like I always just say like take the initiative and like spark up a conversation. And I feel like that's how I met so many of my like closest friends. Like I remember like Cameron, like I remember in the Google office, that was our freshman year internship. I just saw her chilling and I went up like, hi, my name is Maya.
Yeah.
Like, are you intern too? And then literally we have a whole friendship. Like, and she comes to some events and stuff and she's a part of the community. So I feel like if you're not able to, you know, or there's not already existing community around you, like I definitely say like take the initiative, walk up to people, introduce yourself and like see what like can blossom from there because like you really will meet some of like your closest allies. And like that's what takes away from like networking being so like stoic and like, you know, corporate. Is like just being like normal and like talking to people as like natural and building relationships, like truly building relationships and not just like, oh, this person can give me a referral.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like that's such a huge misconception about networking as like, I see it as just like trying to build real, like genuine friendships with people.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I also love like one thing I love about my company is like how many ERGs we have. Like I love the ERGs and I've always leaned on those.
Yeah.
So it's just like trying to connect with people on like, even outside of work, outside of a work basis. Yeah.
All of those things I feel like create like a big melting pot for you just feeling like included at the office, like honestly, which is like one of the main things I feel like people are seeking.
Yeah.
Because like if you don't have any allies that you're able to lean on, because like there's so many obstacles and stuff that like you have to face. Yeah. So like being able to have people in your corner who like, especially in like situations where like maybe you're not in that room, but somebody could advocate for you in that room. I feel like I've just seen time and time again. So like it just keeps proving its value to just put yourself out there, honestly.
Yeah, that's so real. Do you have any other pieces of advice for maybe that person that, not you that like goes up and talks to them, but maybe a shy person? Like what other piece of advice would you have for combating imposter syndrome?
Well, definitely like tapping in with SiSTEM. Like we're going to be rolling out a bunch of like different like online virtual like programming, but Baddies in Tech is another phenomenal organization that I feel like has a big virtual component. So I feel like connecting with like organizations that are like already existing that like cater heavily towards virtual experiences, I think is really important. And like if you're afraid to like talk to somebody in real life, you better Slack that person. Like honestly, like I don't think it's good to like wait for opportunities. Like I think you need to like, even if you are shy, like push yourself a little bit. You know what I mean? Like it's okay. No one's gonna bite.
Yeah, that's true.
Honestly, like I guess like because I feel like imposter syndrome is kind of like a mental health crisis as well. So it's like, you know, if you do have accessibility to getting like actual like a therapist, like professional help, I think that like that can do a great thing. Like I feel like therapy has really, really helped me with my like own personal journey with like self-esteem, self-confidence. Like all of these things are connected with like feeling like you are worthy of like the life that you live and like what your purpose is. So I feel like that's like another thing. Like if there is mental health resources available, I think that's like a big thing that to make as a goal like in your therapy journey for sure.
Okay, yeah, that's so real. Well, thank you so much. Thanks
yes.
for this advice. What do we have coming up with SiSTEM soon? Let's see. We have an October activity.
Yes, we are going apple picking in October.
Yes. So stay tuned. I hope you're hearing this before we go so you can come along too.
If you're ever in the New York area, just make sure you follow SiSTEM because we do monthly community building events. We're going to be doing a bunch of like professional panel workshops and tangent with all of these amazing companies that we have like partnership with. And the hope is that we're able to be connecting with like, you know, the Black Googler Network and Black at Uber and everything to be able to put on some really good like professional career development panel discussions, honestly, for leadership and like career advancement.
Yeah. Really looking forward to it. All right.
Thanks for listening.
Today. Bye.